This week, I really want to focus on the office side of starting a business. So we're out of the field, we're in the office. Right now, at this stage of development in the farm, it's March 2024. You started this back in September 2023. You're really not up and going with the farmers market yet because it just hasn't started. You're not totally in full swing with crops. So when you look at non-field work that you have to do, should do, could do, all those categories, what are the types of things on that list at this stage of the business?
Um, I mean, it's definitely managing expenses, just kind of knowing what's coming out versus what's going in. Like, I mean, obviously, but um, especially right now because it is so like expense intensive without, like there's significantly more going out than there is coming in. And so it's sort of like keeping up with all of that, knowing like it'd probably be a really good idea to know exactly what I spent on seed, and have that all broken down because a lot of it is still sort of like shooting in the dark. Like, man, I don't know how much I'm gonna need to spend. Uh, like how much did I spend on arugula seed this year? And it's like, well, we'll see because how much of it actually got planted versus how much of it like actually got harvested and sold and so like trying to do that. But I would say the biggest thing right now is establishing sort of those um like bookkeeping processes. Like how like do I want to go paper receipts and go old school and just sort of like keep them in a filing cabinet? Do I want to just like bite the bullet and get QuickBooks and do all of it? Or do I really want to bite the bullet and just hire a bookkeeper? I've had those conversations, and got those prices and so on and so forth. And so I'd say so right now it's mostly just managing expenses um and that also falls into like managing and tracking mileage, those sort of things. So, less for right now and more for like taxes and write-offs and different things down the road. I'd say that's probably the main side. That's probably the main focus of like office work for the time being. And then also trying to like learn the tax code and know like what uh like can I write off my rent if I live on the farm? Those sort of things. That's it kind of jockeys back and forth between like inputting receipts and checking, statements and then like Googling random farm tax questions because, I don't have a tax person on speed dial.
Okay, I'll give you my non-CPA advice on a few of these things that are harder and lessons. So, one, I would get a CPA that specializes in small business. You can probably
Hmm.
find one that specializes in farming given your geographic location. And I wouldn't Google any questions about what you can write off. I just ask
Okay.
them. I
Gotcha.
and I think I pay something like $1,000 for a return,
Gotcha.
for an LLC. And I 100% know that I'm saving way
Mm,
more than that in
yeah.
the long run. If I tried to do it myself or do anything, and even the CPA I have now, she's better than the other one I had where I was doing some sort of, she's like, oh, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. The old guide never brought it up. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
well, if you do this, it'll save you this much money. So that's been well worth it.
Gotcha.
I would never do my own taxes as a business. Two, get QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Just get it. It's $15 a month for their starter plan. It I would say this, everybody who starts a business shits their pants over bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
it's like this huge
Oh,
stressor of like, how do I do it? I don't want to do it. And it's like one of those things like, I don't even know what the analogy would be. Um, but it's once you figure it out, it's like, why did I ever even worry about it? It's
yeah.
so easy. Because if you have QuickBooks, you set it up. And if you're gonna have a bank account, right, for the business.
Hmm.
So that's linked to it. So that's capturing all transactions. You're gonna have some sort of POS system, probably Square or something like that, that you take income. So you sync Square with it, and that's gonna capture all your incoming. And then you probably have a credit card to do purchases on. And as long as you use that credit card for business only, bam, and it just you go in and I set a time now, and I'm not the best at doing this, but I try and do every 2 weeks where I go in and just log transactions, and I'm probably logging way more than you would even have to log. So I would bet it would take you it might take me 20 minutes every 2 weeks.
Oh yeah,
Just
and it would probably take me no time at all then.
yeah. So I mean, you're just and then initially to set up the categories, that's going to take some time, and that's more for your advantage. So say you want to track seeds, amendments, equipment, like trays and that type of thing. Maybe you have water, you have rent. It's going to take a little bit of time to build out those categories, and then you can set up rules. So it's like if you see a receipt come in from Johnny Seeds, automatically categorize that as this expense, and it just
Hmm.
drops in. Like it doesn't even go on your approved thing. Like it just flows through and drops in the right bucket. And then your CPA can access that. So if it's like, I don't know how to handle this, your CPA can drop in the receipts. I don't even keep receipts. Um,
Yeah,
so I don't know if I should. I've never been asked for them, but it's all
yeah,
in there. And a lot of the stuff's digital anyway. So I'm not
yeah,
so
yeah,
worried
yeah.
about that. But it just really makes it easy. The keys are purchasing stuff like with one account and limiting the
Hmm.
number of accounts you have so that it can all just sync through. Where I think some people can mess up is I use a personal card and then the business has to reimburse me for it.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
And then it's like you're unwinding all that stuff. But it makes it really easy. And then you can start to gain some insight from that of how much did I actually spend last month? Because you can run all the reports, or what percentage of my expenses are on seed. I thought
Hmm.
they were going to be 10%, but holy cow, they're 30. So those would be things I think that they they're non-negotiables, I'd put it.
Yeah.
And it does de-stress it and make it easy. And then there's questions like you can tag stuff or ask an accountant, and then a lot of the stuff you can catch up at the end of the year. And I know you said you were talking about mileage, I think before we got in the last one, but I'd get it for that. I get an app like
Yeah.
Everlance or something like that, where it's
Well, I
just
think I think QuickBooks will do that. I think it'll track a lot of that too.
yeah, I think it syncs with Waze maybe, or a lot of these apps where you can just yeah, it just funnels right in, so it just
Yeah.
drops into there. So there's not even any logging on it.
Yeah, I
I,
mean, yeah, I'm using one of those to do that. It's pan, yeah, yeah. But yeah, well, I want to say with the new, it's like it's integrated inside QuickBooks, so it just does it for you as long as you have the app on your phone.
Yeah, that it probably does. I don't do mileage, so
Yeah,
I don't know on that. I think yeah, actually I'm looking at it here and because I went ahead to see how much pricing was. Yeah, mileage tracking, boom, included in the starter plan. I think for things that you hate doing in any business, the more you can automate it,
hmm,
the better you can. Like software pays for itself
yeah,
in terms of productivity and free time and stress removal in no time. Um,
hmm,
like there's some software we pay for that's insanely expensive and it just still saves a massive amount of time. So yeah, I do that because I think it's cheap at the end of the day to do something like that.
yeah. Like we were discussing that like tax return or like doing our taxes because because now this will be for 2024. Like this will be the first time we'll have two small businesses. My wife's business isn't very big. It's not super expense heavy. And so it's pretty cut and dry, straightforward. And she's been doing it for a long time, so she knows how it all breaks down. But this will be the first year. Um, well, no, we've done it in the past, but this will really be the first time that we have like all of our income is coming from two businesses that we both run. And so it's like, yeah, like we're not doing our taxes on our own this year. Like, it's like I know, and I think I said it's like, yeah, it's probably gonna be like $1,000 to do that, but it's done. We have the peace of mind that knowing it's done right and has everything that we need, and you know, we'll be able to write that off on next year's taxes, and then the next year, the next year, the next year. So it's like it'll probably hurt this year a little bit, um, but then from here on out, it's just like smooth sailing. And so it's like kind of some of those things are like hard, painful things up front, maybe, if you're strapped for cash or, just the time to like build everything out. But then once it's done, feels like it's probably one of those things that, yeah, it just sort of like takes care of itself and is such a huge weight off of your shoulders.
It's selective thinking. And this isn't, I do it. I'm not calling you out. I think everybody does this. People will be like, oh, I can't spend on this. And it's like you get Starbucks every day or
Yeah.
you go out to
Yeah.
eat every day, right? Like add that cost up. Like we love to, we'll find any way to justify stuff we love and any way to not justify things we don't want to do. Um, yeah, I've talked to somebody who are like, oh, this is, this plugin is expensive. And it's like, well, how much is $8 a month? It's like, really? Who is that making any difference in life? If you
Yeah.
just threw $8 out the window once a
Yeah.
month, like, are you noticing that? No. How are you set up? Are you an LLC or what did you set up the farm as when you went down this road?
Yeah. So everything's run through the LLC, all of the business stuff, um, bank account, the land lease, everything. Yeah, it's all run through an LLC.
Which then makes it easy. And there's advantages of doing that in terms of what you can write off. And Georgia's
Exactly.
probably a much more favorable state than California in terms of LLC fees. So I'm sure you have that going for you.
Yeah, for sure.
What about, you know, crop planning at this stage? I think we've touched on this in a past episode. When you have a farmer's market coming up in April, without a track record of selling at that farmer's market, if you've done that for 5 years, all right, I'm going to sell this much stuff each week. So you can back calculate. I know what I need to plan. When you look at April and beyond, is it just, how do you know how much to grow that first year? I mean, you can say, here's the crops I want to grow. That's one decision you have to make and
Yeah.
time it with seasonality. I don't think that's necessarily the hard part, but is it this many beds? Is it 50 tomato plants or 250 tomato plants? Like those types of decisions. How do you go about figuring that out?
Um, so I would say there's three ways that I go about doing that. I say that with a lot of confidence, like I know what the hell I'm doing.
Rule
But
number rule number one.
yeah. Um, so I would say the first thing is I try to reverse engineer that magical $1,000 a week at the farmer's market that I'm trying to hit, because it's like if that's my sales goal, then it's like I should plan accordingly. Because if I'm like, I want to hit $1,000 a month and I just pulled it out of my rear end and I'm just like, well, I think I can do a bed of carrots. It's like, well, if your heart, if from my little bit of experience over the last 3 years, like, all right, I'm harvesting carrots every single week out of this bed. Maybe it'll take a couple of weeks, like how many beds of carrots versus like, all right, so if I'm doing $1,000 a week, let's say I'm anticipating maybe 45% of that'll be salad mix. So then I need $450 worth of salad mix every single week. So how many, plants versus how many beds, so on and so forth. And so that's sort of my jumping off point. Um, we'll see how well that actually shakes down, because
Let
that
me
45. Oh, go ahead.
let me pause you there. So on that, I like the idea of backtracking. I'm going to sell $1,000 a week. There's a
Yeah.
couple of ways that could be. I'm going to sell $1,000 of salad mix. I'm going to sell $100 of 10 different crops. How do you think about the breakdown of the thousand?
Yeah. Well, and so it's kind of just going with one, it's the little bit of sales that I'm doing now and letting that sort of be maybe the proof of like, all right, so salad mix is as popular as I think it's going to be, or vice versa. And some of it's just sort of like, I mean, with my gut, like read a few books, just sort of experience stuff and then just sort of like your best shot at guessing. Like 45%, like if I'm doing 45% of my sales every week is salad mix, that might be really generous. Might be like, yeah, right, man. Or maybe it's super ambitious, or maybe it's like, dude, you're gonna be like 65, 70%. And so I that's one of those things. It's like I'm sort of just throwing my best guess at it, trying to reverse engineer that. Like I want to say typically with a lot of things I've been like trying to think like, well, if I incorporate all this, maybe I'm somewhere at about 12 to 1300 bucks a week worth of stuff that's leaving the farm potentially. And so by the time you incorporate, like some loss, crop failure, you know, this and that, whatever, maybe I'm trying to sort of, like I said, it's not this foolproof system yet. Hopefully it will be. But right now it's just sort of like using that as some sort of a jumping off point with that. And then I would say number two, the most obvious one is like just with whatever land constraints I have. Like I only have one high tunnel. I have four beds that are 50 feet long. Um, like I'm planning on filling it with tomatoes. And so it's like, all right, there you go. I've got 200 feet of tomatoes that I can do. I mean, I can do more outside, but it's like I know I'm at least going to be doing that. And then, and then I kind of know like I have 12 beds that I plan on devoting to things like uh, winter squash, sort of my like kind of longer rotation stuff. And so it's like, all right, that's kind of how I know how many of those. And then I would say the third thing is um, the things that I know that I'll be able to sell, just probably plant. I've been planting more than I think I'll need because it's like if I know I can sell it and I think people are going to really like it, I would much rather just have more than I need that I can maybe push off till the next week. And then maybe that third succession, I'm realizing like, all right, so you were a little ambitious on the amount of Hackerite turnips that you're going to sell. So like maybe back it off. Or it's like, thank God you planted that extra half bed because you're going to need it. And so that's sort of things. It's like, and then the things that I'm not so sure about, maybe be a little bit more conservative because I'd almost rather not have enough tomatoes. One, because everyone's going to have tomatoes. No one ever is going to have to go without one. um, it's like maybe be a little conservative with the things that you're sort of not so sure about, and then be really liberal with the amount that you're planting and the amount that you're buying seed wise of the things that you're like, oh no, these are going to hit. This is going to sell great. And then hopefully, because if you sell out of something, you sold out of it. That's great. And if you have something that you have a little bit too much of, then maybe that's the motivation for you to just kind of push it a little bit more, try to sell, maybe an extra 15, 20 bunches at the market next week. Or, maybe back to what we talked about previously, like maybe I just need to devote a bed to this for wholesale and just get it out the door, get a quick check and move on. So those are kind of my three ways of sort of determining crop planning right now.
I think it's solid. I really like it. I think at the beginning, you're just not going to know. So at
Yeah.
some point, you try and calculate what you can, and go Christopher Columbus. Hey, we're sailing somewhere out there. We think it's out there. We're going to head in that direction and, we'll figure it out. But you have to at least make some sort of decision to plan on. That's the other part. You can't get caught in some sort of analysis paralysis of like, I need to get it perfect. You're not going to be. So you guess. And then to your third, I think, I mean, tell me what you think about this from a farmer's perspective. Growing more than you need, I think, than you think you might need. I think that's a solid strategy for in a farm context. If I thought I was going to sell so many paper pot transplanters and I ordered three times more, I'm up a creek because now I got hard inventory that's got a lot of costs associated with it, and I gotta like really push to sell that stuff through or wait. It's going to take a while for me to unwind. With seed, it's relatively inexpensive. Like it's just cheap. The bottom line, it's cheap.
Yeah.
If you have the bed space at this time of the season, which you do, you can overplant, protect yourself from stuff that might go wrong, weather, pests, poor germination, inexperience managing the crop, whatever it is.
Yeah.
and you just don't have to harvest it. You turn it in like it became a cover crop and you're out something, but you're in a better position. I would think mentally, knowing like, hey, I sold two and a half beds. The last half the bed of that third bed, I just had to turn it in. Yeah, I'm thinking you'd feel better doing that than you would if you had two and you were totally sold out with nothing left to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you're, you're leaving money on the table, more or less. It's like if and then also too, it's like, yeah, if you can grow two beds versus one bed, um, then it's like then you're pushing the upper limits of maxing out what your production can be. So then it's like, oh, like I can like two beds seem to go okay. It's like I couldn't sell it all, but I can produce it. And if I can produce it, I know I'll be able to sell it one way or another. Like, yeah, maybe it's like two beds didn't really cost me much more in time and in seed than one bed was. And so, and I know I can sell one bed retail. And it's like maybe I can do that bed wholesale. And it's like, boom, there's an extra $1,000 right there. Um, and because if I already have the JP1 out, I already have the roller in there, I already have the seed out, and it's like it's going to take me 5 more minutes to do that second bed, and I give myself a little bit of insurance at the market, and yeah, and then the rest of it, that's when you hit up the random chef. You're like, dude, I'm swimming in arugula. Do you want to buy a case of it? And hopefully
But
they
the other
do. And
thing
if
is it
yeah,
motivate you, right? To move it.
yeah, exactly.
So there's maybe two levels of crop planting. One would be you're going to have to plant tomatoes, so you have that space in the greenhouse, right? And it's allocated for tomatoes, so you just stale seed bed it, let it sit till tomatoes are ready. And another, I'll say like second level of crop planting would be like, all right, I know my tomatoes need to get into the ground in there April 10th. I'm going to squeeze some radish or whatever in there to occupy the bed in the meantime. More complexity, more work, more involvement. Where when you think about your future bed needs into the future, are you at the stage of really trying to get cute with it and absolutely max out efficiency on bed space? Or is it like, hey, if beds are fallow for now, that's fine. I need to focus on what I have. Those beds will get planted out later versus trying to have 100% plan out 100% of the time.
Yeah, you must be bugging my phone or something because I literally was having that thought of like, all right, so the lettuce and the arugula are done in the tunnel, but the tomatoes are gonna have a little bit before they're ready. And I'm looking at this like packet of radish seed going like, should I just do a bed of radish or like two beds of radish before the tomatoes go in? Or do I just let it be? Do I just tarp it and
Or you
just
or you transplant or you direct seed the outsides of the bed, two rows on
yeah,
top
I
of
had that
it,
thought too.
leave the
Um,
middle open.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, your hypothetical scenario is a very much a real present one that is on my plate at the moment. I would say, as much as I would love to just like crank it out and maximize production and maximize all my space, um, I from the little bit of experience I've had trying to do some of that, um, lately, is I get a little sloppy because I get excited and I get hurried, and it's like, all right, we've got to get something in, and it's like you just because it's all sort of new, you just get sloppy and you make mistakes. You're like, why did I plant a third of a bed of this in the middle of this bed? And so it's like I've got, like I've got Mizuna greens in the middle of a bed that has gone to seed and needs to come out. And then I have, you know, beets on the other third, and then the last third is Napa cabbage. So now I have two things that are going to take much longer to be done, and then this random middle section that's not, that needs to come out. And so it's like, and the only reason that happened is because I was in a hurry and I got sloppy. And so I would say more than anything, it's like, yeah, like let's let I'll probably just let the tunnel do its thing, just chill. Yeah, give it a chance to to germinate some of those like warmer season weeds and deal with those, and then get the tomatoes in, and and maybe do like a shoulder crop of something. You know, I'll throw some spring onions or lettuce on the sides of those beds or something when it comes time. But yeah, I'm trying to fight the urge to like go to this like everbed relay cropping thing, because like I know that's like a pro move, and I am just not, as much as I want to be, I'm just not ready for that yet.
It's a good call, and there's so much farm content out there now.
Yeah.
And if you try and cherry pick stuff from people that have been doing it forever, you just say, I'm going to mimic Nicholas's system at Crystal Organic, right? Like you're probably going to fail
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. And another curse of the entrepreneur are ideas. Every idea is not a great idea. And every idea comes with complexity, both seen and unforeseen. And it's that unforeseen that can really bite you in the ass at the end of the day. If you don't have, especially if you don't have the experience to really think through how could this situation play out? Because in theory, you could game plan all this. I'm going to plant this bed of radish. All right. If it goes well, in 30 days, I have radish that I harvest and I sell it. I don't even know what you'd get for a bed of radish down there, but let's say you could sell it for 200 bucks.
Hmm.
Is that 200 bucks worth it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think a lot can necessarily go wrong in this scenario, but say it's you can kind of game plan if I do this and it doesn't work, what does not working look like? I've spent
Yeah.
this much time. I spent this much seed. Probably a better example is like you a whole bed of Salanova and you harvested it all and it's bagged and you can't sell any of it. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, we're out all of that. So what's your upside gain to your downside? Is there additional stress load? Does it going to take time away from things that are more important? If it's can relatively autopilot itself, be self-sufficient, well, it's like, what do we have to lose? If you're okay just tilling it in at the end of the day or cover cropping it, uh, then that is what it is. But I think I, it, taking the foot off the awesome idea accelerator pedal is
Yeah.
often a wise move. It's like it's that military saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and it's not fast is fast.
Yeah.
So when you look ahead to plan out, what stage of what of the beds you have prepared right now? So not the stuff that's not set up ready to take plants, but with what you have, what percentage of that has crop in it?
I'm probably at about I have a few things that are probably not going to make it for the rest of this month for market. Um, but if I'm just looking at pretty much everything else, I'm probably right at about 75 to 80% um, full on what I have with stuff that's going to be in for that.
Hi.
Hey, babe, what are you doing? Oh, well, I can't get you candy. You have to talk to your mom about that one. All right, Daddy's finishing his meeting. I'll be done in just a minute, okay? Can you go get mommy for me? Hey, June, it's really hard for Dad to focus while you're in here. I love you. It's just weird. Hey, can you go? Come on. Junie, stop stalling. I know you're stalling. I love you. All right.
All good. I got three, so I
Yeah.
fully get it.
I'm just glad she has clothes on.
All right. Yeah.
Um, what
All
was I
right.
saying?
Um,
Oh, the beds. How much?
hang on. Let me make a note. We'll edit that gap to close it out. Edit gap. Okay.
Um, Yeah, so I'm somewhere probably about 80% full on the beds that are like ready to rock and roll. Like they're good, they're stuff, and that ranges from stuff that I'm already harvesting that will carry me over until April. Things like broccolini, some kale and stuff like that, collard greens, all the way down to like the arugula and hackerias that just got seeded last week. So, but we're pretty full with um, what beds are ready to go.
Because right now the sales that you're doing are to restaurants,
To a coffee shop and then just sort of friends and family
friends
right
and family.
now. Yeah,
Is any of that, do you see either one of those streams as being a season long stream?
definitely. I'll sort of coalesce both of those streams into one. Hopefully. So basically, like when it basically end up being like once a week I drop off the stuff to the coffee shop that they sell, and then I'm also dropping off boxes that people have a couple hours to come and pick up, maybe like a Thursday evening or something. And so they will be two separate streams because one will be like a wholesale account where I'm just selling to them and then they're selling it, and the other one would be sort of like direct retail. But um, but hopefully that those will sort of like help each other out and they will both grow and be a pretty uh, a pretty consistent sales channel in the future.
Can they be catch-alls for product, or do you actually have to crop plan for them?
We'll see. As of right now, it's pretty small. I mean, it's maybe a dozen people altogether. And without having any sort of like a limit on how much they have to buy, I'm getting some people that are like they just want like a bunch of broccolini, but because I'm seeing them every couple of weeks, I'm just obliging because I'm just not really at the point now where I'm ready to like put a kibosh on little orders like that. But I think um, I think for right now, that's probably what it will be, is it'll just be a like I'll offer you whatever I have that's not sort of already committed based upon the market. Um, and it might be minimal, but if I can see that there's an opportunity for it to continue to grow, then I'll start trying to actually crop plan and devote, an extra three, $200-300 a week in sales toward that.
Yeah, Ray Tyler was doing something like that. It was like a weekly crop bag. It's like, here's what we have.
Hmm.
I don't know, every week, you get the bag and you get whatever's in it. And it catches all the stuff that you haven't sold through other streams. When you look at getting the farm's name out there at this stage, given all the work that you have you had to do any work, branding, marketing, whether that's, when you look at what I mean on that is things like website, social media, that newsletter, getting email list. Like, is that all just like that's a later down the line thing, or is it stuff that you actively feel the need to work on now?
I had a lot of that stuff built out before I even had a piece of property. Um, it's so I've kind of, I came from a marketing and sales background, and also kind of having a more like creative side, artistic side. Dabble with a little bit of graphic design and web design from like old jobs, as well as just being connected with a lot of people like that. And so, like, I have like a full branding suite with colors and variations on logo and design and all that sort of stuff. Built a pretty simple one-page scroller website and have been doing social media pretty consistently. Um, and so honestly, all of those pieces were in place, except for maybe the newsletter. I'm trying to build that and trying to be consistent about putting one out every single week. But other than that, everything was in place and was rolling in some form or fashion before the farm actually really got going.
How important do you feel that is at this stage? Because I mean, it can be one of those things that people talk about. I've talked about this stuff. I don't know how valuable any of it is.
Forgot to lock the door.
No problem. Might as well edit that, edit.
So for me, I don't know if this is the right answer or not, but for me, like everything I do is branding and marketing. Because at the end of the day, it's like before the farm was ever a farm, it was like an idea, it was a dream, it was a story. And so I, I have felt that that was super important to sort of build the brand, so to speak, so that because the way that I see it is like one, I get to tell my story, like the reasons why I'm doing this beyond just the physical crops that I'm growing. And because a lot of times people like that may be what differentiates me from the other person three tenths down that has the same stuff. It might be like, man, we really love, this whole thing about like reclaiming this agricultural intention for the state of Georgia or whatever, whatever. Um, or it may just be that they like the style of my logo and subconsciously it just sort of draws them in. And so um, that sort of thing can be the differentiator between you and other people. But I think also too, and I have zero way to prove this, this is totally just in my brain, but it makes sense to me, is that by having everything like polished and looking really nice, it gives you a level um, of professionalism. And so it can create this sense of like, oh, well, everything branding wise and marketing wise looks really good. So clearly they have their stuff together. Clearly they're successful. And I think we tend to want to support successful things. And um, so yeah, I mean, and I'm just always telling the story. I'm always branding and marketing. It's just kind of who I am. And so one way or another, it was going to come out anyway. And before I had land, this was my sort of outlet to build the business and focus. The direction was to build all that stuff out.
Are you involved at all in any sort of like church organization?
Yeah, we're pretty heavily involved in
Okay.
our local church here.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I asked is because I've heard people bring this up and I'd be curious to get your take on that. Could you, since that's typically a closely knit
Hmm.
community,
Yeah,
could you go to that community and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. If you want to buy this stuff, let me know. Or is that seen as like, maybe it's not the right word, spamming? Like, how is that any sort of maybe not even the right word, resource? Like, is that a active potential customer base for people? Like, how do you view that?
that is my customer base. So we haven't really gotten into details about it, but right now, when I say friends and family, like it's church friends and family. And so, one of the reasons why I'm able to justify like selling a single bunch of broccolini is because like I'm literally taking orders, like we have our church gatherings on Friday nights. And so I'll send out text messages on like Sunday and say, hey, y'all, you know, here's what I have available this week. And, let me know by or Thursday at 5 p.m. And I'm building orders and I'm taking it with me. And then when church is done, I'm like meeting people out in the parking lot and like hawking vegetables out of the back of my truck and doing that. So like that is my main sales channel right now is that group of people. And thankfully we have a group of people that are all like serial entrepreneurs, like everybody's doing their own thing. And so there's a lot of support and there's a lot of like excitement around supporting each other's businesses. So I can't say it would be that way for everybody. Um, I could see some people interpreting that as like, you know, changing money in the temple and Jesus has got to flip over all the tables to deal with that. But at least with my crew, everyone's super pumped and is really excited to support it.
So potentially a valuable resource to help get a young business off to a good start.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right on. I mean, because that's the thing. It's always We're all involved in some sort of group, and I think that is a struggle a lot of customer or businesses have initially is where do I get my first customers? And odds are you probably already know them and they're the people that you spend a lot of time with,
Yeah.
whether that's other employees at a company you work with, some sort of group, a church group, some sort of other group that you're involved with. But start there. At least they're friendlies and they'll either politely tell you no, but it's less intimidating to, I would think, to ask those people than, straight up door knocking or something like that.
Yeah, and then another little kind of sales channel within that is, then my wife texts all the girls that work at the salon that she works at. And then so I kind of like aggregate all those together, build my pick list and then pick stuff. And then I just like pack up her stuff separately and send it with her and she takes it to work one day and divvies it out and they give her cash or they cash at me or whatever and it's done. So yeah, trying to sort of capitalize on those kind of untapped resources and markets where you don't really have to sell yourself or prove anything because you already have a relationship and they're just like, oh yeah, totally, I want to support you.
Yeah. The reality is at some point you have to ask for sales from somebody.
Yeah.
So start with people makes it a bit easier along the way. And then that gets
And
some momentum going and they tell friends or they can give you some sort of testimonial, which you can try and leverage up and other things. Total wild card question. I don't know if you have anything that even fits this question. Are there sales avenues that you've kicked around? Maybe I could do this, but you just haven't for some reason.
nothing that I've really thought of that is like really out of the box. I would say, if anything, I'd say the two things that I'm really thinking about doing, and it's more of like, do I really want to spread myself that thin? Is one of the companies that I have that I wasn't able to really get off the ground, mostly because we started having kids, and it totally changes your entire thinking on your life, and you got to like reprioritize. But but I had started a pickle company, and it was really like getting going, and people were super excited and all that sort of stuff. And I sort of put that on the back burner, laid it on the altar, so to speak, and been really toying with the idea of like picking that back up. The coffee shop that I sell at has a commercial kitchen that they rent out. I still have all my certifications for making all that sort of stuff, and the people at the market said that they are in desperate need of someone who's doing that. And so it would be less of like, but it would become like a value add. Whether it's like I'm actually growing the pickling cucumbers, um, or I'm adding incorporating things, like maybe I'm like, yeah, we ended up with like a glut of Hackereye turnips and it's like, or here's some monster ones that I really don't want to sell at market. It's like, yeah, let's chop them up and make pickles out of them. And so that's been kind of like an unorthodox sort of value added um sales sales opportunity. And then another one,
Well, hey, on that
uh
one, if you do that, is it like the type of pickles you'd have to cold store?
it probably would be because it's there's less hoops to jump through. Like if you start doing shelf stable stuff, you're all of the processing that's involved and all of
Right.
that. And so, and if I already have cold storage at the farm, then it's like I can devote a little bit of space to some containers of stuff and be off to the races.
Is that something you could just, with a minimal investment, crank a bunch out in a weekend, see how it goes, and then go from there? Like it seems like a fairly low low risk finance, low risk time commitment thing if you want to do it. It's one thing, hey, does it fit? Do I really want to do this? But it doesn't seem like it would take up too many resources to do that.
No, I mean packaging would be the most expensive portion of it. Other than and if I'm growing it myself, that's cutting the cost. But even if I just go out and start buying cases of like organic cucumbers or whatever, um, yeah, I mean it would be pretty low investment. And thankfully, any sort of like higher investment piece is like a chopper to slice them the right size and do a bunch of that. Like I still have a lot of that stuff. I'm held on to it, like not giving up on that dream. Um, and I don't have to do a bunch of R&D with recipes. Like I still have all that sort of stuff. And so yeah, I could crank out a bunch of them and they would probably be fine in storage for a couple of weeks. Um, yeah, and so I don't even have to move them particularly quickly.
Yeah, see,
So
my fascination with shiny objects already has me like, hey, you should do that.
yeah. So well, I will be able to find pickling equipment on Modern Grower soon
Yeah,
for
yeah,
value
exactly.
adding. Yeah.
Right. Buy something, get a free jar of pickles.
Yeah.
I think there's something, obviously I don't farm, but I think there's something attractive to having a divergent market stream, like a totally tangential product. Not, I was gonna say totally different, but it's tangential. And where it's a value add, it's higher profit margin, it's shelf stable or relatively shelf stable compared to lettuce. It opens up some opportunities in the future for things like getting into stores, getting into other people's CSAs, getting into co-ops, that type of thing. So I'm always, when I hear farms do that, Jenny Quiner does the dressings. It intrigues me, and she'd say, "Hey, there's definitely a lot of work there, and it's scale, but there's some anti-fragility I think that comes with that, and it's just everybody balancing out what's the trade-off. If I do it, what do I gain? If I do it, what am I giving up, or what could I lose out of this? And I'd like to think if managed well, a lot of those things pay off. But
Hmm.
all right, number two. What
Oh,
is it?
number two, sales platforms that I have to sort
Hang
of
on, hang on. Can
push.
you chopped out for a sec? Can you
Oh,
restart that? Number two.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so number two would be um, using the existing sort of sales funnels that I have to push sort of like secondary products, if that makes sense, like merch. If I've already paid for all this super awesome branding and I'm pretty good marketing and branding wise with my thinking, um, and there's some really awesome resources out there, like, this like direct to garment stuff where you don't have to pay for cases of t-shirts that are pre-printed. You can kind of do all that through like Shopify and whatever. Um, it's like how much more would it cost me to start, driving people to the website after seeing a shirt hanging up at the farmer's market that has some sort of like kind of funny or kitschy phrase like microbes are people too, with the crop culture logo on it, and it's like it might not be like a huge revenue generator, but it kind of, especially with like the direct to garment stuff, because you can do all kinds of hats, shirts, mugs, everything. It almost becomes like a passive income stream based upon your brand and your marketing that people can order it online. You could potentially offer some way of buying it through your farm store, having it, a few of them that you can sell at the market. It's like, am I going to sell out of them every single week? Probably not. But if I sell a couple and then that kind of builds and grows, like it could potentially be like yeah, like I said, like a passive income stream.
Some sort of little add-on type thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you So you do this drop, right, to friends and family. Could you ever see a case for aggregating other farm stuff into that drop?
Yeah. That's already um been in my brain, wanting to incorporate other things that either I don't grow or maybe like I don't grow enough of them. Um,
I'm just thinking,
it,
especially with you being at Crystal Organic, it's like, hey, could you get something there and you have enough margin left to add it into the list?
yeah, like something like sweet potatoes, like, kind of going back and forth on if I really do want to do that this year. But man, I wouldn't have a hard time selling them. I can tell you that much. And so, yeah, like maybe it's worth it to buy them wholesale from them or something else. Even also thinking, things like mushrooms that a lot of people and a lot of the I feel like a lot of the people that buy local organic produce are also like enjoying really nice culinary mushrooms. There's a couple of people that are selling at the market that have that sort of stuff. It's a good way to like build a relationship with a fellow vendor at the market, start selling their stuff wholesale. It benefits you. Um, and then yeah, and you're also sort of filling out your box or filling out your drops with additional things, or even looking at like proteins and things like that. And Crystal has been a great example because they already do that. You know, they do their weekly pickup and they're aggregating mostly from themselves and then from, you know, I want to say 4 or 5 other sources as well. So you can get everything from like medicinal tinctures to mushrooms to ground beef to, whatever. And so that's definitely been in the forefront of my mind of trying to build those relationships with other farms to start aggregating.
Do you have a good enough relationship to that with them where it could be, hey, pickups on Sunday, you got to place your order by Thursday, and let's say you listed sweet potatoes that Crystal Organic grew. If orders are placed by Thursday, then you just buy what you need on Friday to shove it in the box. Like, or do you think you have to take that inventory up front?
Um, with something like sweet potatoes, I could definitely do. It would probably be easier to just like take the inventory up front because then I could just sit on them, But if it's something else like a green or something else, I would probably have to go through like basically get treated like any other wholesale customer. It's like, all right, well, if you pick up like if I pick up what I need for my people from them on Thursday, it's like, yeah, I need to have my order in no later than like Monday, Tuesday. So
Right, right.
so it just depends on the crop.
Yeah,
But
just because
doing things like potato, like I'm not going to grow potatoes. He's going to grow, you know, probably a couple acres or at least an acre worth of potato. And so it's like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Like I can buy them and I don't have to grow them. I can sit on them, and people will buy them. It's like, yeah, it's like I totally should do that.
do you think there's enough room in there to mark that up?
Um, we'll have to see. I haven't had those questions, so I don't know exactly margin, but I think from what I understand that yeah, there would be a little bit of room for sure. Well, I mean, most of what he's selling is wholesale anyway, so everyone else that's buying it is obviously marking it up and making a profit.
Yeah,
So
right. I guess that's true. So
yeah,
there's something in there. I mean, just the thought of aggregating is that at this stage, in past episodes we've talked about there's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of stuff to do. Uh, Here's another real world farmer perspective. I can talk about how amazing it is to aggregate, but I'm not living it. If
yeah.
if you were to aggregate from one or two other farms now and sell, realistically, does that feel like it's another thing to do, or damn, that's more work? Like, how does it feel at this stage to do that?
Um, it would have to fall into a category if I were to like pull the trigger on aggregating something. Um, it would have to fall into the category of like, do I want this? In the inevitable time where I can't sell it all or whatever. It's like if I hate eating sweet potatoes, like I'm not gonna probably buy 50 pounds of them to try to sell because inevitably I'll be the one that has to eat them at the end of the day if I can't sell them. So like step one is it like can I hold on to them for a while? Will they be easy to sell? And is it something that I want? And so it's like if it kind of checks all three boxes, it's like I feel like it would give me enough motivation to want to do it. Um, but I mean, I'm not gonna go crazy. Like I'm not gonna, go start getting all these different things because like one person said like, oh man, it'd be great if you had, you know, cantaloupe. Like I'm not gonna go and try to like hunt down a farm that's doing cantaloupe so I can start doing or like what some people do is because we have such a drastic difference between North and South Georgia. Um, people are like shipping up and going down and trucking up citrus and melons and all kinds of stuff from South Georgia. It's like I'm not gonna start jumping into that. But if it's like I'm already seeing this guy once a week at the farmers market and I can like coordinate ahead of time to get 10 pounds of oyster mushrooms from him. or I'm already going to be at Crystal 3 days a week, so it would be nothing to just go pick it up, and it's 10 minutes down the road, or yeah, or the farm is 5 minutes down the road or whatever. And it's like and if I think it will drive my sales, like if it's just going to be like, man, everybody loves the sweet potatoes, but no, but it's not. I'm not seeing like an overall upward trend on my sales because of this. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like yes, I want to offer as much as I can to the community and to my customers, but like it has to be with the end result of like it's basically sweetening the deal to get them to purchase more of what we have.
What if you started aggregating and that became more popular than the stuff you grew? Not because of quality, but just like that's what that you just tapped into, like that's what people want.
Um,
Would you pivot?
Potentially, that would be man. Well, it'd be hard because I have a 3 year lease.
Yeah,
So I
I'm
would
not saying
probably
abandon the farm, but
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
maybe like it changes the
Like
approach, right?
maybe keep growing it like a part-time scale and then start aggregating and doing that and instead of it just ma mainly being focused on being a grower, kind of start becoming like a grocer almost. I'd be open to it because before I started the farm, I had the idea of like, man, there's nobody around here that's like offering fresh local stuff unless you have to like go to a farmer's market in this small window or find a farm and drive to it. It's like, man, if there's a way that a centralized location where people could essentially create like a local grocery store for like, locally produced stuff. So I would be open to it because I think it still sort of fits within my framework of sort of my business model and also wanting to like feed our local community here.
Yeah, and this is the advantage of having a customer or potential customer base, a list, if you will, right?
Hmm.
It gives you optionality. Not that you need to use it, but it's there to potentially use should you ever want to go that route. So, when people say, why should I have an email list, or why should I, maybe have a farmer's market presence? I mean, that gets your name out there. That gets people in the fold. Converting them over to email gives you a way to reach them. Social media does that to some extent as well. And once you're connected with customers and they follow you and support you after you're telling your story, it's like it gives you a lot of potential doors to walk through. Can I sell them other things? Merch? Can I aggregate stuff from other farms? Um, are there other things I could grow that they want that I'm not growing? All those things. So definitely a lot of potential there. Um, so as we kind of wrap this one up, when you look at off farm stuff, office type stuff, is what's on the list for this week of stuff like you have to sort out, or maybe not even this week, in the near term?
Um, it will be getting QuickBooks and getting started on that because I kind of knew that I needed to. Um, and reaching the point that's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what it costs. Like it's going to be so important. And it's like, um, yeah. And so it'll primarily be, yeah, just because before I have sales coming in on a big stream, it's like I just need to bite the bullet and get it done so that come April, hopefully it's like running smoothly and so I'm not like trying to frantically figure out QuickBooks while I'm also in the middle of trying to frantically make sure I have everything picked for market. So that's what this week's project is going to be is taking Diego's advice and everybody else's advice and just bite the bullet and get QuickBooks.
Yeah. So next episode will be the joy of balance sheets and income statements.
Yes, sir.
Nerding
Yes,
out.
sir.
Right on, man. Thanks so much.
Cool.